Something in your body is still braced right now, like you never fully got to switch off today. Even though you tried, even though you're tired of carrying it, and even though nothing is asking anything from you in this moment, there's a quiet tension still holding on underneath. Not loud, not obvious, just enough to keep the system slightly on edge, because the mind has been trying to process it, loop it, resolve it. But the body hasn't been given the signal that it can finally release. And that's the part most people miss. The thinking doesn't settle the body. But once the body settles, the thinking has nothing left to hold on to. So nothing here is about trying to calm down. Nothing here is about doing this correctly. This is where the system begins to shift on its own. And you don't have to do it alone, because your body already knows how to move in this direction. There may still be some mental movement right now, small fragments of thought, unfinished pieces. That's fine. And your system already knows this feeling, because it's been here before, and it can return here again anytime. Because the change doesn't begin in the thoughts, it begins lower, slower. Underneath that layer, you might start to notice the breathing, not because you're focusing on it, but because it's already there, continuing on its own, air entering without effort, and leaving again, slightly longer than it came in. Nothing forced, nothing controlled, just the natural shift where the exhale begins to extend, and the body starts recognizing that signal. Because when the exhale lengthens, even slightly, pressure in the chest begins to drop, heart rhythm softens, and the nervous system starts moving out of alert mode. That happens automatically, as long as nothing interferes with it. Another breath comes in, quiet, steady, and leaves again, slower this time. And somewhere underneath that, muscle tone begins to reduce without being told to. Not everywhere at once, just small areas releasing first. The jaw may loosen slightly, the tongue resting more heavily in the mouth, shoulders no longer holding themselves in place. No effort required to make that happen, because the body doesn't need instruction to release. It only needs the absence of pressure. There's still that subtle background activity in the mind, but it's already beginning to lose structure. Thoughts not forming completely, or fading before they finish. And this is where the shift deepens. Because instead of following those thoughts, something else starts becoming more noticeable. The weight of the body, resting without adjustment. Contact points beneath you, holding everything without effort. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving again, filling just enough. Exhale leaving. Longer, softer, the chest settling inward. And right after that exhale, there's a brief moment where nothing needs to happen. That small gap where the system isn't preparing, isn't reacting, isn't anticipating. Just a pause that begins to stretch slightly each time. The body recognizes that gap and starts leaning into it. Heart rate adjusting, a little slower now. Circulation moving more evenly. No urgency anywhere in the system. Even the areas that were holding earlier tension don't need to let go all at once. They just stop holding as tightly. That's enough. This is the state your body remembers, the one it can come back to without needing to try next time. Because the process isn't about release as an action. It's about the absence of holding. Another breath arrives, quiet, steady, and leaves again, slightly longer, slightly deeper into stillness. The mind may try once or twice more to pick something up, to restart a loop, but there's less structure available now. Less grip. Thoughts don't quite connect the same way. They begin and then dissolve before they fully form. And that's not something you're doing. That's what happens when the nervous system no longer feeds energy into them. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. The body lowering its internal activity, systems shifting toward recovery mode, muscles staying soft without needing to check them. And as this continues, there's a point where even noticing starts to fade slightly. Not fully gone, just less sharp, less defined. Because the brain doesn't need to track every signal now. It begins reducing input, lowering sensory processing, allowing everything to become quieter. Breathing still steady. Inhale entering again. Exhale leaving. Long, uninterrupted. And after that, another small gap where nothing follows. That gap becomes easier to remain in without needing to do anything to stay there. And underneath all of this, something is already preparing to go further without needing your attention to get there. And the more often this happens, the more familiar this becomes, until your system begins to move here automatically, even before you notice it. There's no need to follow anything now, because if your mind has been overworking and your body is tired of carrying it, the shift has already begun. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving quietly, feeling just enough. Exhale leaving, longer, slower, the chest settling deeper than before. And each time that happens, the body registers less need to stay alert. Not as a decision, but as a biological response. Heart rhythm adjusts slightly again, each beat spaced just a little further apart. Circulation moving without pressure, without urgency. The hands remain still, warm, no effort in the fingers. Arms resting more heavily now, supported fully. There's no repositioning needed, no correction required. Because the body is no longer trying to hold itself up. Another inhale arrives. Subtle, automatic. Exhale leaves again. Long, unforced. And right after it, that brief pause appears again. No preparation, no anticipation. Just a moment where the system isn't doing anything at all. And that moment begins to extend, slightly longer than before. The body recognizes it and continues leaning into it. Muscle tone lowering further now, not actively releasing, just no longer engaging. The shoulders sink a little more, the neck no longer holding position. Even the small stabilizing muscles begin to switch off gradually. Nothing needs to support anything anymore. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And somewhere during that exhale, the body drops slightly deeper again. Not dramatically, just enough to notice the difference afterward. The surface layer of tension, no longer present in the same way. There may still be traces, but they don't hold structure anymore. They begin to dissolve without needing to be addressed. And the mind, still producing small fragments, but without direction now. Thoughts starting, then stopping halfway, or shifting into something else, without completing anything. That's the natural point where the mind stops trying so hard. The part that organizes, plans, tracks, no longer fully engaged. So the thoughts lose their sequence, their clarity, their momentum. They become softer, less connected, less relevant. Breathing continues again. Inhale arriving, steady, quiet. Exhale leaving, long, emptying more completely. And with that longer exhale, pressure in the chest reduces further. Baroreceptors adjusting, sending signals that the system is stable. No action required. No alert needed. The body begins shifting deeper into parasympathetic dominance. Digestion slows. Metabolic demand lowers. Energy is redirected toward restoration. All of that happening without needing to be noticed. The breath continues to guide it. Inhale, exhale. And again, that small pause afterward. The pause now more familiar, easier to remain inside. Less urge to move away from it. Less internal checking. Because the system is no longer looking for problems. There's nothing presenting itself as urgent. Nothing requiring resolution. So the monitoring begins to fade. Awareness softens slightly. Not gone, just less sharp. Edges of sensation becoming less defined. The body still present, and safe enough now not to ask for attention. Breathing continues quietly. Inhale entering, exhale releasing. And with each cycle, the depth increases in small increments. The system recognizing that nothing interrupts this pattern. Consistency builds safety. And the more familiar this becomes, the easier your body will remember the way back here. Safety reduces activation. Activation dropping further now. Muscles remaining soft, even in areas that usually hold tension. The abdomen relaxed, no bracing. The chest moving freely, without resistance. The throat open, no tightening. Each area contributing to the same signal. Nothing needs to be held anymore. And as that signal continues, the mind has less and less material to continue its activity. Thought fragments appearing, then dissolving before completion. No chain forming. No direction maintained. Just brief flickers that don't sustain. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And the body settles again, slightly deeper than before. The surface awareness thinning. Not fully gone, but no longer leading. And underneath that, a quieter layer beginning to take over, without needing to be followed. The system continues without needing guidance now, especially if your body has been holding more than it should all day. Breathing steady, inhale arriving, exhale leaving, slightly longer. And with that longer exhale, the body drops again, just a small amount. Not something to measure, just something that registers afterward. Muscles remaining inactive, no effort returning. The jaw still loose, tongue resting heavily. Shoulders no longer adjusting, arms settled fully into support. There's no correction happening anywhere, because the system has stopped trying to optimize position. Another inhale comes in, quiet, unforced. Exhale leaves again, longer, smoother. And again, that space afterward appears. The pause, now more stable. Less interruption, less urgency to move out of it. The body recognizes that stillness as safe and begins remembering it as a place it can return to again. So it remains there, slightly longer each time. Heart rhythm continues slowing, not dramatically, just enough to shift the internal state. Circulation smooth, no pressure changes, no sudden shifts. Everything moving evenly now. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And during that exhale, another small release happens. Not something directed, just a reduction in holding. Across the back, muscles no longer maintaining structure. Along the spine, no need to stabilize. Gravity now doing all the work. The body simply resting inside it. The mind, still present, but less involved. Thoughts attempting to form, but losing sequence, losing continuity. Beginning, then dissolving. Not completing, because the energy required to sustain them is no longer available. The system has shifted away from processing. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, steady. Exhale leaving, long, even. And the gap afterward, now more noticeable, not because attention is sharper, but because everything else is softer. That gap, no demand, no signal, no movement. And the body begins to remain there, without needing to return immediately. That's where deeper regulation settles. The system recognizing everything is steady, no changes needed, no response required, no correction needed, no adjustment required. The nervous system accepts the state as stable, so it continues descending. Muscle tone lowering again, even in areas that held longer before. The abdomen completely soft now, no internal bracing. The chest unrestricted, movement smooth, uninterrupted. The throat open, breath passing easily. All signals aligning toward the same direction. Nothing needs to be held. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And with each cycle, the depth increases in quiet increments, making it easier for your system to find this again later. The surface awareness continues thinning. Edges of sensation less defined. The body still present, and safe enough now to fade into the background. Just a general field of contact, without detail. And the mind, less able to organize anything now. Fragments appearing, then fading. No structure holding them together. no sequence continuing. They lose momentum before forming. And because of that, there's nothing to follow. Nothing to continue. Breathing continues again. Inhale, entering. Exhale, leaving. And during that exhale, another small drop, deeper than the last. The body settling further into stillness. Less activity across the system now. Less internal signaling. The brain reducing input, filtering out unnecessary information, allowing everything to quiet further. And in that quieter state, even noticing begins to soften. Not disappearing, just becoming less defined. Less effort involved in awareness. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, and the pause afterward remains longer, more stable. The body staying there, without needing to move out of it. And underneath all of this, the system preparing to drop further, without needing to signal it. There's less to follow now, especially as the part of you that kept trying all day begins to switch off. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving. Exhale leaving. Longer. And the body responds again. Another small drop. Not something directed, just a continuation of what's already happening. Muscle tone remains low. No re-engagement. Even the smaller stabilizing areas no longer activating. The body isn't holding itself together anymore. It's simply resting, fully supported. Another inhale enters. Quiet, steady. Exhale leaves. Long, smooth. And after it, the pause holds again. No signal to move. No shift required. That pause becomes more continuous now, and more familiar to your system each time it happens. Less interruption between cycles. The system recognizing this pattern as stable. Heart rhythm slows slightly further. Each beat spaced, even, unforced. Circulation remains steady. No fluctuations. Everything moving without urgency. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And during that exhale, another release. Deeper than before. The shoulders no longer register as separate. The arms, less defined. Hands still present, but without detail. Sensation becomes more general, less specific. The body no longer presenting clear boundaries. Just a field of contact, supported, unchanging. The mind, no longer attempting to organize consistently. Thoughts appear, then fade. Without forming structure, without connecting. Fragments, unlinked, brief. They don't hold long enough to become anything, because the system isn't sustaining them anymore. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving. And with each cycle, the depth increases again. Subtle, but consistent. The surface awareness continues to thin. Less monitoring, less tracking. No need to check the body. No need to follow sensation. Everything already settled, without supervision. The nervous system remains in a stable, regulated state. No alerts rising. No signals requiring response. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And after the exhale, the pause extends again. Longer than before, easier to remain inside. The body stays there, without needing to move out of it. That's where deeper quiet begins, the kind your body starts recognizing as somewhere it can come back to. Internal activity reducing further. Everything inside slowing, becoming quieter, needing less and less to continue. The prefrontal layer, no longer organizing input. No sequencing, no tracking. Just brief, incomplete signals that fade before forming meaning. Breathing continues again. Inhale entering, exhale leaving. And with that exhale, another quiet drop. Deeper, more settled. The body now resting, safely, without interruption. No adjustments. No repositioning. No internal correction. Everything aligned toward stillness. The sense of effort no longer present. Nothing being maintained. Nothing being managed. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And the pause afterward remains steady, unbroken. That pause becomes the dominant state now. Less movement between breaths. Less transition. More stillness holding everything. And within that stillness, your system begins to know this as its natural resting place. Awareness softens again. Not disappearing, just losing clarity. Less defined, less active. And beneath that, something quieter continues, without needing attention. The system is already moving deeper now, in the same way your body naturally does when it finally stops holding everything in place. Breathing continues without interruption. Inhale, arriving. Exhale, leaving. Longer. And with that longer exhale, the body drops again, quietly. No effort involved, no direction needed. Muscle tone remains minimal, no re-engagement anywhere. Even the areas that once held longer, no longer maintain tension. The body resting fully, without structure, in a way that's becoming more familiar each time it happens. Another inhale enters, steady, automatic. Exhale leaves, long, even. And after it, the pause continues, more stable now. Less interruption, less movement out of it. The body remains inside that stillness without needing to return. Heart rhythm remains slow, consistent. Circulation even, no variation in pressure. Everything held in a steady pattern. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And with each cycle, the depth increases again, small but continuous. The body no longer presenting clear physical boundaries. Arms, less distinct. Legs, less defined. The surface of the body, no longer sharply outlined, just a soft field of contact, supported, unchanging. The mind, now losing even more structure. Thoughts begin, then dissolve almost immediately. No sequence forming, no connection holding, just brief signals without continuation. Because the system is no longer feeding them energy. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving. And during that exhale, another drop, deeper than before. The body settling further into complete stillness. No internal adjustment. No external awareness required. Everything functioning safely, without needing your involvement. The nervous system remains fully regulated. The body fully settled now, staying in a state where nothing needs to activate again. No alerts, no activation returning. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, and the pause afterward remains longer now. Easier to stay within. No pull away from it. No need to move out of it. The system settles there, without interruption. And within that stillness, awareness softens further. Less clarity, less definition. The body no longer requiring attention to remain stable. The mind no longer able to organize anything fully. Fragments appear, then disappear, without forming. No continuity, no direction, just brief activity that fades immediately. Breathing continues again. Inhale entering, exhale leaving. And with that exhale, another quiet descent. Slightly deeper, more settled. The body now resting in a state that maintains itself. No input required. No guidance needed. Everything continuing on its own. The sense of effort no longer present at all. Nothing being held. Nothing being managed. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, and the pause afterward, steady, unbroken, holding the system in stillness. That stillness becomes the dominant condition now, one your system is beginning to recognize as its natural baseline. Less movement between breaths, less transition, more continuity of quiet. And beneath that, something even softer continues, without needing to be followed. There's almost nothing left to track now, as the part of you that was paying attention all day finally lets go. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving, longer. And with that longer exhale, the body settles again, not downward, just quieter. Muscle tone remains minimal, no return of effort anywhere. Even the smallest areas, no longer engaging. The body isn't organizing itself anymore. It simply remains fully supported, unchanging. Another inhale enters, subtle, automatic. Exhale leaves, long, complete. And after it, the pause holds, longer now. not something to stay inside, just something that remains on its own. The system no longer shifts away from it. Heart rhythm slow, even, steady. Circulation smooth, no variation. Everything consistent. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And with each cycle, the depth becomes less noticeable because there's less contrast. The body already near complete stillness. No clear edges of sensation. Arms, not separate. Legs, not defined. The surface of the body, no longer outlined. Just a quiet field, unchanging, supported. The mind, no longer forming consistent thought. Fragments appear, brief, then dissolve before meaning forms. No sequence, no continuity. The system not sustaining any organized activity. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving. And during that exhale, another soft reduction. Not a drop, just less of everything. Less internal signal, less sensory input, less awareness needed. The brain reducing processing further, filtering out even more, allowing the quiet state to remain uninterrupted. The nervous system stable, fully settled. No alerts, no corrections. Nothing rising that needs response. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, and the pause afterward remains extended, unbroken, becoming the natural place your system settles into. The system staying there without effort. No movement away from stillness. No return of activity. Everything maintaining itself in a way your system is beginning to recognize as something it can return to again. Awareness, now very soft. Not fully gone, but no longer clear. Edges gone, definition reduced. Nothing sharp enough to hold attention. The mind unable to organize anything at all. Only brief traces, appearing, then gone. No follow-through. No continuation. Breathing continues again. Inhale entering, exhale leaving. And with that exhale, another quiet settling. Not deeper, just more complete. The body fully at rest now. Safe, and no longer needing to respond to anything. No internal adjustments. No external awareness required. Everything sustained, without involvement. The sense of self, no longer held in the same way, but still completely safe within this quiet state. Not gone, just not defined. Less separation, less distinction. Just a quiet presence, without structure. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, and the pause afterward holds steady, continuous. Nothing interrupts it. Nothing pulls away from it. Everything remains as it is. And within that, even this noticing begins to fade. There's very little left to notice now, as the part of you that was still paying attention begins to soften even more. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving, longer. And with that exhale, the system settles again. Not deeper, just quieter still. No areas returning to activity. No signals increasing. Everything remaining at minimal output. The body no longer presenting any clear structure. No distinct boundaries. No defined positions. Just a continuous field, supported, unchanging. Another inhale enters, subtle, barely noticeable. Exhale leaves, long, complete. And after it, the pause remains, stable, continuous. No shift away from it. No return of movement. The system staying inside that stillness, without effort. Heart rhythm slow, even, uninterrupted. Circulation steady, no variation. Everything consistent, without monitoring. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And with each cycle, less difference between one and the next. The transitions fading. The pauses holding longer. The stillness becoming continuous, in a way your system is beginning to recognize as familiar. The mind, no longer forming thoughts in sequence. Only brief traces, appearing, then gone. No meaning forming. No direction continuing. Just fragments that don't connect, because the system has fully disengaged from processing. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving. And during that exhale, another quiet reduction. Less signal, less input, less awareness. The brain lowering activity further, reducing even background processing. Allowing the system to remain uninterrupted. No internal commentary. No tracking. No checking. Everything already stable. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And the pause afterward remains extended, unbroken. The system staying there without movement. No need to return. No need to adjust. Everything continuing on its own in a way that feels safe to remain inside. Awareness, very soft now. Not defined enough to hold anything. No edges. No structure. Nothing clear enough to follow. The body fully at rest, with nothing needing to respond anymore. No signals rising. No responses forming. Everything settled into complete stillness. Breathing continues. Inhale entering. Exhale leaving. And with that exhale, another quiet settling. Not deeper, just more complete. The sense of separation, no longer defined, while everything remains completely safe within this quiet state. No clear distinction between parts. Just one continuous presence, without structure. No effort to maintain anything. No need to identify anything. Everything remaining as it is. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, and the pause afterward holds, steady, unchanging. Nothing interrupts it. Nothing shifts it. Everything stays within it. And within that, even the last traces of noticing continue to fade. The system remains quiet, undisturbed, in a way your body recognizes as safe to stay within. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving, longer. And with that exhale, the body stays settled. No further movement needed. Everything already at rest. No areas re-engaging. No signals increasing. Just a steady continuation of stillness. Another inhale enters, subtle, barely forming. Exhale leaves, long, complete. And after it, the pause holds, long, continuous. No return from it. No shift out of it. The system remains there, without effort. Heart rhythm slow, even, unchanging. Circulation steady, no variation. Everything consistent, without interruption. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And with each cycle, the transitions reduce further. Less distinction between inhale and exhale. The pauses holding longer. The stillness becoming continuous, something your system is beginning to recognize as its natural state. The mind no longer forming anything sustained. Only faint traces, appearing, then gone. No sequence. No connection. Nothing remaining long enough to hold. The system no longer supporting thought. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving. And during that exhale, another quiet settling. Not deeper, just more complete. Less internal signal. Less sensory input. Less awareness required. The brain reducing activity to minimal levels. No processing beyond what is necessary. No excess signal. Everything quiet. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, and the pause afterward remains extended, unbroken. The system staying there without movement. No need to return. No need to adjust. Everything continuing on its own in a way that remains steady and safe. Awareness. Very faint now. Not clear enough to hold anything. No edges. No structure. Nothing forming. The body fully at rest, with nothing needing to respond. No signals rising. No responses forming. Everything settled into complete stillness. Breathing continues. Inhale entering, exhale leaving. And with that exhale, Another quiet continuation. No change needed. No shift required. Everything already complete in its stillness. The sense of separation no longer present, while everything remains completely safe within this quiet state. No distinction between parts. Just a continuous presence without structure. No effort to maintain anything. No need to identify anything. Everything remaining as it is. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, and the pause afterward holds, steady, unchanging. Nothing interrupts it. Nothing shifts it. Everything remains within it. And within that, even this quiet continuity continues without needing to be noticed. Everything remains as it is now, steady, undisturbed, in a way your system recognizes as safe to stay within. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving, longer. And with that exhale, the system stays settled. No movement returning. No activity increasing. Everything held in quiet continuity. Another inhale enters. Subtle, barely forming. Exhale leaves. Long, complete. And after it, the pause remains. Extended, stable. No shift away from it. No interruption. The system stays there without effort. Heart rhythm slow, even, unchanging. Circulation steady, no variation. Everything consistent. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And with each cycle, there is less distinction between movement and stillness. The pauses hold longer. The stillness becomes continuous, something your system is beginning to recognize as its natural state. The mind, no longer forming any structure, only faint traces, appearing, then gone. No sequence, no connection, nothing sustained. The system not supporting any cognitive activity. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving, exhale leaving. And during that exhale, another quiet continuation. No change needed, no shift required. Everything already in a state of stillness that continues on its own through the night. Less internal signal, less sensory input, minimal awareness. The brain operating at reduced levels, just enough to maintain the state. No excess activity, no processing beyond what is necessary. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And the pause afterward remains long, unbroken. The system staying there without movement. No need to return. No need to adjust. Everything continues on its own, in a way your system is beginning to recognize and return to. Awareness, very faint now. Not clear enough to hold anything. No edges. No structure. Nothing forming The body fully at rest, with nothing needing to respond. No signals rising. No responses forming. Everything settled into complete stillness. Breathing continues. Inhale entering. Exhale leaving. And with that exhale, another quiet continuation. No change. No movement. Everything already as it remains. The sense of self no longer defined, while everything remains completely safe within this quiet state. No distinction. No separation. Just a continuous presence, without structure. No effort to maintain anything. No need to identify anything. Everything remains as it is. Breathing continues. Inhale. Exhale. And the pause afterward holds steady, unchanging. Nothing interrupts it. Nothing shifts it. Everything remains within it. And within that, even this final trace of awareness continues to soften until it no longer forms. Breathing continues. Inhale arriving. Exhale leaving. Longer. The system remains settled. No change required. Another inhale enters quietly. Exhale releases. Long. Complete. And after it, the pause holds. Steady, unbroken, continuous. No return from it. No shift away. Everything remains within it. Heart rhythm slow, even, consistent. Circulation steady, no variation. The body fully at rest, with no signals needing to rise. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And with that exhale, stillness holds. No movement returning. No activity increasing. Everything sustained without effort. Awareness no longer forming clearly. No edges, no structure, nothing held. The mind no longer producing sequence. No continuation. Only quiet absence of activity. Breathing continues. Inhale entering. Exhale leaving. And the pause afterward remains. Long, steady, unchanging. The system stays there. No need to return. No need to adjust. Everything continues on its own, in a way your system now recognizes and returns to naturally. The body remains settled. The mind remains quiet. Nothing forms. Nothing continues. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale. And the pause afterward holds again. Uninterrupted. Unchanged. Everything remains within it. This continues through the next breath and the next, without effort, without awareness needing to return. And this pattern continues, steady, familiar, without needing attention. Breathing remains, inhale, exhale, pause, and again, inhale, exhale, pause. The system maintains this pattern, automatically continuing through the night, without needing anything to bring it back. No interruption required. No guidance needed. Everything remains as it is. Breathing continues. Inhale, exhale, pause, and again, inhale, exhale, pause. The body remains still. The mind remains quiet. Nothing rises. Nothing follows. Only this, continuing, unchanging, through the night.